If you enjoy watching Common Ground online, please consider making a tax-deductible donation at lptv.org. Lakeland Public Television presents Common Ground, brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota. Welcome to Common Ground. I'm your host, Scott Knudsen. In this episode, Bob Carls of Aitkin invites us into his wood-turning workshop where he creates banded bowls.
Hi, I'm Bob Carls. I'm a wood turner, woodworker at Ripple River Gallery. And I'm here to show you some of the processes, some of the things that I do as I make mostly wooden bowls. I'm going to start out with this small box elder bowl, roughed out. And I would like to make a bowl with a rim, different colored rims, foot rim. And that would be the only additions I would do to the bowl. The next step, this has been roughed out and dried for about 4 or 5 months. And it's very, very dry. I use my little light bulb kiln, a little box down here with a light bulb in it. I don't know. Let me show it. All it is a box with some shelves and a light bulb that's not in there right now. And that finishes off the drying really well after 2, 3, 4 days. So, and then I've got very stable wood to work with. So I'm going to go over to the lathe and true this up and get it ready for the next step. So first thing I'm going to do is the rim. And the idea here is to make this perfectly flat and true, so when I go to put a segmented rim on it, I've got a nice gluing surface. So I get that not perfect yet, but pretty close. Then I want to just true up the outside of the bowl a little bit. So I'm going to do a little downhill cut here, which they say doesn't work well, but it works okay. They being I'm not so sure who. When I do this, I'm paying attention to the form, which to me is probably one of the most important things, not so much the what I do with it, the decorative stuff. Take a little cut back to true it up. That's good. Okay, now we'll check the rim. Get it true. Just use the tool. Okay, I'm a little high on the inside. So. I'm using a square nose scraper right now just to. Okay, that's pretty nice. Then I will sand it to finish it off with a nice flat sanding block. Slow the lathe down a little bit. Normally I would turn the dust collector on, but I'm not going to turn it on right now because I'm only sanding for a short moment. Okay, that'll work. The first thing I think about, and I spend a lot of time at it, is wood color and what different varieties of wood and what I want to use for a rim. And on this particular box elder piece, which it's going to have some wonderful color, I wanted to use a little bit of bird's eye maple, but I also wanted to use a little bit of sapelli veneer, which is a tropical wood, and I will use the sapelli and I glue it onto the rim, what's going to be the bottom of the rim. And so I will have a little line, see the white line on this one, a little transition from the rim into the bowl body. Just a little color thing, and I just sort of like that. And it just gives it a little more definition, visual continuity. So anyway, when I glue this stuff up, what I'll do is just take the two, I've already made the two pieces, just cut it out with a knife out of a sheet of veneer. These pieces I true up in a drum sander, the pieces that are going to be cut into segments. So I've got a really nice surface for gluing, and this is very straight. The material's got to be really straight so everything stays true. All right, so real quickly, I'm just going to apply a little glue to this. It goes quick. I like putting it on with a roller because it's fast. You don't have to mess around a long time because I'm trying to make things and get them done, not mess around too long. The sapelli is a really interesting, nice wood, and so is the bird's eye maple. All right, that goes in there. Okay, we're done putting the glue on. Put this piece back on. That's it. Rub them back and forth a little bit. Rub the excess glue off the edge. Then I'll throw a piece of wax paper on this, like so, and I'll set another dry board on there for clamping, and I'll clamp it. Then I'll go over and I'll make the foot. And I do the foot over here in segments on a chop saw. So I would, in the case of this, I would do 8 segments. I would use a little different jig. This is set up for 90 degrees. I would do the 8 segments, and then once I'm done cutting those, I would have pieces like, little pieces like this, only they'd have angles on them. And I go to the disc sander and I'll set up an appropriate piece here. This is like for 10 segments, 18 degrees, 36 degrees here, 18 degrees at the saw. And I put this in here, and then I'm able to slide. And this really works well. Clamp it down, you gotta make sure it doesn't move. And I know this is pretty well true because I've already checked that with a square. Just touch them. You do both ends. And that's how you would adjust the accuracy of your segments, the length of your segments. And you can get them within a couple thousandths or I mean, thousands is probably overkill. As long as it's just 2 or 3, you don't have to worry about it. But anyway, you get a wonderful joint. The chop saw gives you a really lovely surface to work with, but when you touch them here on the disc sander, I use an 80 grit disc, you get just this really nice joint to work with for gluing. Then I would glue the segments together into a ring, into half rings. This is one that's been glued up into a half ring that I didn't use. Well, actually a little more than a half ring. I would glue it into a half ring. And then once you got the half ring glued and it's dry, you go over here and true each half up and clamp them together with a hose clamp, or hose clamps. And you've got a rim made. You have to check the bottom of the rim now to true the bottom of the rim on all these smaller pieces. And I consider this could be either small or large. Anything else sitting on the table here is basically what I would call smaller. And I would go over to a sheet here of sandpaper I've got underneath these boards, and I would rub this around just like this. It's the simplest way in the world to very quickly and accurately flatten this surface after it's all glued, so you can glue it onto the bowl. And so that's so what you end up with then is a ring like this when you're done. This one has been flattened, this is true, and I would just glue it on to this ring, and that would be it. That would be that. The next thing I would do, now the box elder bowl we were just looking at was going to have a rim and a foot. That's it, a plain bowl. Let the figure in the wood and the color and whatever's going on in that little bowl stand on its own, and I think it'll stand on its own very well. This next thing here is frequently I will put bands into the roughed out bowls. So in the case of this bowl, when it was like this, with just the original tenon on it yet, I would true the bowl up, this bowl. Then I would take it to the bandsaw, and this is what it would look like. This is one that's all trued up, ready to go. I trued it up yesterday. I would take it to the bandsaw and I would cut a piece off and I would insert some other wood. So we can do that. I'm going to cut this one, the first piece off of this bowl. I'm all set to do it. That worked out nice. Set this piece aside. Shut the saw off. Get this guy out of here. I use this because it helps to steady the bowl, this round surface. It grabs in here and you can keep things going straight. Then I will slide the fence over to take out the amount of material, cut out the amount of material that I'm going to be replacing with one of the bands, putting another, some made up material in there. So we'll get this done. Okay. From here, I would go over to the disc sander now and true these up freehand, these surfaces from the saw, and prepare them for gluing. I check it, make sure everything's true on the table here, which it is. There we go. So that piece is done. You try to take off as little material as possible. This one, we're going to have to put a little handle. I'm going to glue a little handle on this. Throw a little bit of glue on any old little scrap of wood. And just glue it right on there. Touch it there. Wiggle it till it doesn't want to wiggle anymore, which should be soon. There it is. Yep. What I would do is take the bowl now and trace this pattern right here and cut it out on the bandsaw. And the other thing I like to do is I don't like to line it up straight or straight, because when you start going across it at different angles, and you can just play with it. I mean, that's the idea, is to be a little spontaneous here. When you go across it with different angles, there we go. That seems to be the most efficient use of the wood, and it gives me a nice angle. I like where some of these lines are occurring. So all I'll do is trace this thing out. And that's that. And then here I will just do a little bit of this. That's all. That's where I'm going to cut that piece out. So we'll go do that. We're going to cut this piece out on the bandsaw. Okay, that's part of the deal. And now we got it off the bandsaw, and I've cleaned it up with a little piece of sandpaper, get the fuzz off of it from the bandsaw blade. I'll double check and just see how things are here. Now, this is still a little short, but now I was going to add some veneer to this because, again, I like it. So what I'll do next is cut the veneer, trace it off of this piece, not off of the bowl. I like the scissors for cutting out the veneer. You can go across grain and stuff without breaking stuff up. There, that's going to be the sandwich. This sandwich will be, I'll put it back in here, I'll glue it in. I'll glue this together first. And when this is dry, I'll just clean up the edges. Then I will glue it in to the bowl. At this point, when I'm done with that steps, is a band like this. Here's my different veneers on the sides of a piece of material we built up. This one's got the foot, the rim, the whole works. This is ready to finish turn. This is all ready to finish turn. And this is what you end up with is a really lovely little piece, in this case, box elder. There's a little bit of the veneer we put in under the wingy rim. There's a little black veneer on the edges of the birch plywood bands. This is some plywood that I glued up, cut the strips, flip them, glue it into another sheet, and then you have this orientation on the ends. Makes a nice little bowl. You can turn them down to about 1/8 of an inch when you're done. When I first started doing this a few years back, I had no idea you could turn this stuff so thin and have it all hold together well. I mean, it's really nice. I mean, you can take it down, it's strong. I think the glue joints are probably stronger than the wood itself in many instances. So anyway, that's what you would end up with is a finished piece. And again, you can play with the patterns, put as many bands in as you want, and just have a good time. With the banded bowls, you can continue with that process, and again, as many bands as you want, or however you want to do it, whatever shape bowl, and so on and so forth. But you can also start putting lids on them and continuing through the lid with your pattern if you wanted to. So in this case, I did a double band. It's a piece of curly maple, and in 2 sheets of band material, plywood, and I glued up multiple woods and the veneers like we were talking before. But anyway, as you can see now, they match, and they match, and then as you go around, they match, and they match. And then it's kind of fun now, because then when you take the lid off, this is what you've got. Another process, and again, getting into more things, is you can take a couple of different patterns, and play with the organic nature of the wood, the sort of graphic, industrial things that it looks like or feels like a little bit. You can do that and then combine those two, and I think those two make a tension, and then playing with 2 different patterns or more. In this case, this bowl was made by gluing up a sheet of this material, and this was a whole bunch of stripes. Then they were cut at an angle, and then cut at the same angle, a thin stripe, wide stripe, thin stripe, and then flipped the thin stripe and reoriented in there, and then glue that together into the final sheet. And that's a real standard woodworking process that's been around for, I don't know, 5,000 years. Anyway, so I used that here. I liked using it with the curly maple because, again, it's that industrial sort of thing, but there's a real organic quality to the maple, and because of its iridescence in the curl that's in it. All right, then I built up another sheet of wingy with the little squares, which were strips, long strips, and cut off and flipped on their end and put together. And in this case, they were very, very small pieces of wingy. Put her together, glued it to this piece. So there's an overlap here. Notice this is a little bigger here than it is in here. So there's an overlap right here. That's where it's glued together. So basically just a stack laminate, and then true it up, turn it, true it up, and I glued on this foot of maple along with 2 pieces of Bubinga and the wingy again, and put a maple rim on it, segmented rim. When you get the whole thing glued together, you finish turning it very carefully because you've got hours and hours and hours in it. So you don't want to mess up at that point. But anyway, it's fun. We're in a gallery that my wife Amy Sharp and I opened 15 years ago in the woods. We wanted to open a gallery because we were doing a lot of shows. The last year we did a lot of shows. We did 28 shows, and we found that it was exhausting, and I think I felt that it was probably the antithesis of doing craft. I know I have some very good friends that would argue with me all day long that it doesn't matter, and they love doing shows. A lot of our friends love doing shows. I'm one of those people that doesn't like doing shows. I find them exhausting. The other reason we opened the gallery is we wanted to stay connected to our work a little bit more. When you're doing shows, you make stuff, pack it up, and leave. This way I could leave stuff, live with stuff more by staying home more and working more, which I really enjoy. I'm happiest in the studio, not on the road. One of the other reasons we opened a gallery is because we had a lot of friends who were artists and craftspeople, fine craftspeople whom we worked with for many years. A couple of the folks in this gallery I went to the University of Minnesota with, and one of them to high school with, one of the printmakers. So there's just been this continuum. It's just kind of been part of our life. Right now we have between 55 and 60 artists, 65 artists with us all the time. We rotate shows in this one room that I'm sitting in right now. We change the show in here featuring an artist or a couple of artists every month from March through November. The rest of the time we show the work of everybody that's involved with us in this room also. So we kept the gallery small. We could have enlarged it, and it probably would have been just fine too. Some people have encouraged us to. We don't want to because we want to both. I want to do woodworking yet, and my wife wants to try to get some weaving done. She's much more unselfish with her time as far as the gallery goes than I am. So she's kind of overwhelmed by it sometimes. The gallery seems to have an aesthetic that's probably identifiable, and I think it reflects Amy's taste and my tastes. A lot of it is based in the landscape or our environment or the planet Earth. It's there. It's in everybody's work. And we have definite taste in pottery and in ceramics and in the weaving and in the printmakers. We have some wonderful people that have shown here and are showing here and whose work we represent all the time. And again, most of those people have gone to the environment or the landscape or their immediate environment for their inspiration, and it shows. It gives the gallery a certain continuity. The other thing we're very fussy about is level of workmanship and craftsmanship. That's been very important to us, and sometimes that's difficult. But it's important to us, and I think it's important to the people that come to visit us. We also do a few classes, some drawing classes, watercolor. Dan, the artist that I'm sitting here with right now, his work, did a watercolor workshop for 3 hours this last Saturday at his opening from 10 to 1, and it was really nice because we had children and adults, and they weren't related to one another. And he's a wonderful teacher, and so we do those kinds of things. We've done some basket making. One of the basket makers who grew up in Guyana and learned how to harvest materials on her own and do wonderful things, and ended up getting Tina Fung Holder. She ended up getting a degree from the Chicago Art Institute in fibers. she comes to do a class, and when we do the cattail class, and she gets you up, me, up very early in the morning, and we have to go out and harvest cattails in the middle of August with the mosquitoes. And I don't know, that's why I'm a woodworker. We've tried to manage the gallery as a destination for folks. We try to have a lot of flowers, keep the lawn mowed. We've got a large garden, and a lot of folks come and like to walk around the yard or the grounds and check the garden out as it progresses every season. Check the flowers out and sit out on our patio right outside the gallery door and have some refreshment if we happen to have something, or just sit there and talk with their friends. And that's been very nice to have that sense of community happening here.
Thank you so much for watching. Join us again next week for another episode of Common Ground. If you have an idea for a Common Ground piece that pertains to North Central Minnesota, email us at legacy@lptv.org or call us at 218-333-3014. To view any episode of Common Ground online, visit us at lptv.org. To order episodes or segments of Common Ground, call 218-333-3020. Common Ground is brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people November 4th, 2008. If you enjoyed this episode of Lakeland Public Television's Common Ground, consider making a contribution at lptv.org.